Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Deborah, and this is She Roars Boldly podcast. And today we have a treat for you. We have Clover Johnston, and she is going to share her story. I'm looking forward to listening to this, and I know you all are too. So, Clover, take it away.
Automatically get on it, and it takes them and bring them right back to the entrance. I mean, if the bus came any closer, it would be driving into the reception area. And so I was ecstatic because this was transportation cost I was paying for to get myself to work on time. The older of the two was 13, and he said she will get a bus pass and she will travel free on the regular bus service. My eldest was now 17. She was at the last year in high school, and she wanted to complete her GCE advanced levels. So I allowed that. Now, the experience of arriving in Scotland was totally life-altering. And it wasn't the weather that made it life-altering, but it was extremely different. What was life-altering was the emotional baggage that I shed. I felt so light that I hadn't felt in years. Because here was I with my two children. I'm not considering whether child support is coming or it's not coming. And when it's coming, I arrived with 50% of my school fee and 50% of my living, my rent. And so I knew I would have to get a job. But I didn't have to think about any of these two dads in terms of, looking to them for any kind of support. So I indeed felt like a featherweight. I hadn't felt that way in years. And then the adjustment of my children was nothing short of miraculous. The older one, after being there for a month, I sat her down and I said, "You are night and day different. What has happened? You are so upbeat and just dying and raring to go to school." She said, quote unquote, "I am rid of the emotional burden of my father." And I could understand it then because children look to you for a level of support. And when it's not forthcoming, they feel disappointment, real disappointment. And I know one of hers that she often heard was, "Why does he say we can spend a weekend with him and then he never takes us for the weekend? He always brings us back." That was one of the ones I saw her shed tears about. The 5-year-old, she just carried on as if I've lived there all my life. And so I was able to start and finish a course, and I describe it as hopping on the back of a lorry or a truck, going at 90 miles per hour. But I was able to do it because of the emotional stability that I was feeling and the fact that I knew this was a do-or-die moment in terms of my professional development and the three people that were dependent on me as a source. And so that year of going to Scotland was the final year I collected a child support check of 1,500 Jamaican dollars, which bounced. And I kept it for a long time until I eventually said, okay, don't need this anymore. So the struggle is real and the fight is real. And they did exceptionally well, the kids, in terms of their adjustment and their own personal and emotional growth and stability. Life-altering for me, let me expand on that a bit. A Black woman from a developing country with a developing country passport. Here's what I learned. It doesn't matter if you got first-class honors. If your degree does not come from a developed country, Canada, the US, or Britain, it is not held at the same value. That's just the reality of life. So that reinforced for me the fact that my 3 children, what I wanted for them, first and foremost, was a developed countries education. And so I did everything to facilitate that. Now, at the end of the 5 years, my eldest had arrived. She had started school. The second one, I said, you have to go. The 2 older ones were Canadian citizens because their father was Jamaican Canadian. So I said to her, you will work your way to Canada from here. So apply and do all that is necessary. And that will be your way out, because I can't afford to pay international fees in Scotland. So the 2 older ones went across, and one went to the University of Toronto. That's the one who went with me first, the 13-year-old. The older one got married to a fellow she met there. They eventually went to Canada, and she started a different career path and then went back to nursing school. So the time comes, I was on study leave, and so I'm bonded to the government of Jamaica. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I started looking for jobs because I was looking for academic college teaching jobs. I started looking too late. And so the father of my last child, who came to visit from time to time in Scotland, I remember him calling me, and I remember this like it's yesterday. And he said to me, I can't marry somebody who is living overseas. And, I shouldn't really have believed, but we want to recognize the better angels in other people. And he was never a generous person. So the question I asked when he said all of that, indicating that I should come back, moving with him and our child, I said to him, what are your expectations of, any sort of financial contribution? Because I knew that I was going back to secure a loan to pay off 1 year's rental, right? Which was almost $1 million Jamaican dollars. So he said, oh no, all the bills are being paid. You're not required to pay anything. Okay, so the first red flag, and I didn't see it as a red flag then, but I don't hold myself responsible because, you have to cut yourself some slack. So he sent the return fare for my youngest, which was his child. So it was just the 2 of us returning at the time. But he didn't send any for me. And I should have seen that as a huge red flag. But as I said, I'm cutting myself some slack. So I borrowed the money because I had no money at the time. And I borrowed the money and I paid my fare. I had been battling some illness in the summer of that year. I had rock bottom hemoglobin levels, and the doctor eventually found out that I had what was identified as the H. pylori, virus or bacteria, I don't remember. And they often say it's a precursor to stomach cancer, so I needed treatment. So she started treating me. When I went back to Jamaica, I realized that the job he was now in, he never applied for a health insurance. He didn't even think of that in preparation for our return. But it just didn't seem as if he had prepared for our return. It was a case of, oh yeah, you're coming in, you're not paying any bills. But that was just on the surface. Anyway, I returned, and the investigation I needed at the time, which was, I think, an upper GI endoscopy, colonoscopy, either the 2 or 1. But long and short of it, it was $75,000. I didn't have that, and he didn't offer to pay it. So I got my daughter into school And I had bought a charter ticket, so it was a return ticket. So I called up the company. I said to them, can I still return on this ticket even though the date has passed? They said, yes, you can, but you have to pay a penalty. I said, great. So I went back and I got the necessary treatment I needed, completed the treatment, and came home with the remainder that I needed to finish the course. And one of the first things I heard from him was that she doesn't have enough clothes. Now, I should have said then, but you didn't send any money. When was the last time you ever sent a sum of money that I could take her shopping for clothes? Mm-hmm. And she's now home. So why are you saying that to me? You could take her shopping yourself. But I'm just reflecting on what happened and sharing it so that others can be wiser than I was.
Yeah.
Anyway, she gets into school and she's doing okay. And he had been involved in a relationship, which he said had ended. But in that time when I had gone back to Scotland to look about my health, which it was probably at the most 3 weeks, he was driving my daughter up and down with this lady. Now, how did I find out? So my daughter had to begin extra classes to catch up because there was an exam that she had to take within a year that would get her into high school. So one day we're driving to the teacher's home and she says, Mommy, Daddy's friend lives over there. So I don't know that friend. So eventually I started putting the puzzle together and realized that this was somebody that he was seeing and he continued to see. So she gets into high school and I have a 5-year bond. And I'm saying, how am I going to live out this 5 years in this environment where by now I'm recognizing that, yes, you're going to have to pay bills. And I learned that. I'd come back. My first time returning was the end of August. Then I went back and came back. So by now it's like October. And things look rosy on the surface. But if you scratch beneath, you know it's not what it appears to be. So by the time it's coming towards December, I am told I saw 3 bottles of liquor. He's a big on decoration. So the Christmas tree, the banister, everywhere is beautifully decorated. And he says to me, I see 3 bottles of liquor under the tree. And those are from the contractors that he works with, but nothing for anybody else. And I'm not seeing any Christmas money coming like for, shopping or nothing like that. And he says to me, this is sometime in December, he says to me, do you have any money? And I said, why? What do you mean? I said, no, I don't. All I really have left now is my credit card because I'd come back, negotiated this $1 million Jamaican loan and, paid off my rental, which was a year's rental. And I said, no. So he said, but you have to pay it. You have to pay it. So I said, okay. It's only my credit card. So he took me to the bill payment place and I paid it. And that signaled. And from there, it was just revelation of a downward financial spiral. And I got sucked into that vortex. So there were collection letters for credit cards. The mortgage was behind. And the concerned person that I was, because he was always saying, if I lose the house, where will we live? Where will we live? So that was the emotional pull. Where will we live? Where will we live? So a day came when he came home. The house is up for auction. It's in the newspaper. And I said, how much is owing? Oh, it's 3 months it's now owing because we wasn't paying it regularly. So it was like a month behind every time. And if you're not paying regularly, it's going to get to 2 and then it's going to get to 3. So I offered to pay the 3 months. I said, the building society is across from my bank. I got a manager's check or cashier's check, and I paid it. Well, to this day, I've not been reimbursed. He says it's a gift. I've asked back for it. It has never been returned. I'm still waiting. Anyway, so I'm sucked into this very untenable situation of somebody who is in and out of a relationship with somebody else, and he's trying to tell me that it's because she gets work for him and he's involved in the decoration work. But he is in a relationship with the woman. He's having sex with her, to put it bluntly. Okay? But I am not leaving my child. I am not leaving my child because I know that if I did, you know, this is a man that is emotionally stuck in the gender stereotypes, especially of fatherhood. So there are certain things that women must do, right? So I had to hang in there for my child. And so I lived through those most uncomfortable moments of economic, financial, raw financial exploitation. There's no other way to describe it. But I began again to pray for an off-ramp. But the off-ramp I was looking for was salary enough to get me out of here and to pay for her school fee, because I know he was going to show up short. And so that came towards 2014. So 2013, my eldest daughter, who had now gone through a divorce and had a young child, had helped my now ex-husband to return to Canada for his health, because he was having serious heart problems. So she said, Mommy, I'm deeply overwhelmed and I'm asking if you could come and give me some support. So at the end of 2013, I went up. She said he was going to have some treatment early January. The doctor said that they're hoping to administer this new treatment and hopefully it will be successful. So I went up, I hung in there, and I helped her. And while I was there, I started looking around. This is in BC at the time she was living close to Vancouver. So very multicultural, very multi-ethnic. So I began looking around for where could I fit in here in this society, as a literacy teacher with the 5 years of experience. I had been teaching college level in Jamaica as a part-time while I was a communications manager full-time. So I'd been teaching in the local colleges and universities. So anyway, I decided that ESL would be the way to look there. And so I went to the Canadian College of Linguistics, did a short course, and one of the tutors, he guided me and said, you know what, go to Craigslist and look for a job. And you don't even need this because of the experience and the qualifications that you have. But I said, no, it's a new field for me. And there is always the necessity to sort of get your feet wet, sufficiently wet, that you see a new perspective. Because teaching ESL is a lot different from teaching people who are, native speakers. So I did that at the end of the course, and I jokingly said to him, Craigslist, only buy and sell and rental. He said, no, there's an education section. And so I went there and I saw a job for which I applied. It was an ESL teaching job. And about a week later, they called me up for the interview. And when I went for the interview, I saw a tall, robust British man. I said, wow, I'm expecting a Canadian. Anyway, we had a meeting interview and he said, the job is yours if you would like to have the job. But guess where it is? It's in China. We write curricula and sell these programs to these schools. And we are looking someone to train to go out there and to be the team lead for this program. And so I hesitated for 3 minutes. It wasn't more. And I said to myself, that's the off-ramp you prayed for. That is the off-ramp you prayed for. A salary that could, because my daughter was basically going to be graduating from high school in less than a year. So I had to now work on finding a college that I could afford and ensuring that I could pay the school fee without any help. So that all happened. But again, here's what happened. So we agreed. He said to me at the time, why don't you leave her here? Because the local university, it's only $1 million. I said, okay, you convert that $1 million and send it to her on a regular basis. But I'm asking you for her first year to send her, was it 400? I think it was around 400 Canadian per month. Because it's her first year and she needs to get acclimatized and adjusted before we can put her to work, right? She's coming from a country that's completely different and she needs a time of, just a time of getting acclimatized to everything, the climate, getting used to the transport, organizing her courses, doing homework, all of that. So you do need some lead time to get yourself, completely engaged in your new environment. Well, again, that showed up when it suited him with no regularity. And to this day, only half of what was agreed has been paid. But suffice it is to say that she graduated from the University of British Columbia a few years ago. And so I am deeply satisfied that I stayed the course and I did it because of my commitment to them. It was tough, and I'm not telling you it wasn't tough, because when you have to be investing every cent of emotional, financial energy and constantly supporting and ensuring and encouraging and knowing that there is another parent who is just not functioning, is suboptimal at the best. But while all of this was not happening for my daughter, he had bought himself a Mercedes-Benz the year we went to Scotland. He later bought his son a Mitsubishi Lancer to go to college, just to drive to and from college for $500,000 Jamaican dollars. And he was living high on the hog, throwing himself at 50, threw himself a 100,000 birthday party, always well-dressed and dapper, but not showing up in the way he should, committed to his youngest child. And what I want to say to anyone listening, you are going to feel the pain, right? You're going to feel the pain of breakup. And you are going to get re-triggered when these things happen. How could he do that? Those are the questions you're going to ask. And it's just a normal part of life that you are going to ask it. But feel no shame. I feel your pain because I had it. The onus is not on you to internalize the other person's shortcomings. What they did or didn't do is not your responsibility. What you're responsible for is that you showed up and that you did the best you could with the resources that you had and with all of the capacity that you had. And that's what I did. But it's a painful season when we go through the lack of cooperation. When people betray you by saying, yes, they're going to do it, but it's not done with regularity. You never know when the money is coming. Because if it's not regular, you can't say, oh, it's coming. So you are living with that, and you have to be filling in those gaps until it comes. Yes, it is a source of trigger for the initial pain you felt in the breakup. Luckily for me, my first rodeo had prepared me emotionally, but it doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. It's just that you are better prepared to handle it. And so healing, whenever there is a breakup of any sort, healing should be your first go to. However, that is for you, whether it's journaling, whether it's your faith, whether it's emotional freedom techniques, everyone will choose the life vest that they want to wear. For me, faith was my life vest, but I still had to do the swimming. But healing has to be, first of all, it's internal. And it happens first by intention, and then by decision backed up by action. No one is coming to save you in the ditch or in the pitch. In the abyss of life, nobody is coming to save you. People will walk with you, people will work with you, but you have to do the work on yourself and for yourself. That is just the way healing works. And you have to give it time. That's another thing about pain and grief in these situations. There's no linear pathway. It is up and down and looping, and it's filled with relapses and sometimes no closure. Right? There are times when closure is actually a myth and you will never be able to justify or understand. And so you have to just leave it where it is and accept it. That's the best, and move on. But that journey of healing is absolutely necessary. And don't take big gulps. Take baby steps. Movement is medicine, and even crawling counts as movement. Because if you take it in too many big bites, you are going to be in overwhelm. And that can also be crushing, and it can retard your healing process. But it is a prerequisite for you to be moving forward. And what my own story taught me is that every time you fall down, you have a chance to get back up and build back better. And that is resilience. The capacity to get up and rebuild and move forward. Right? Not using your mistakes to put yourself down, but to learn from them and to move forward. And so your pain can always write the first chapters, right? Sometimes it can be an auto pen. But what healing does for you is that it gives you, when you have completed or near completed that journey, you can now grab the pen by your fist and you can complete the novel with yourself as the main character. So I am saying this to say that pain can birth your purpose like it has for me. And that purpose creates a platform. And that is why every opportunity I get to be on a podcast, I take it. Because I know there are women out there who are going through the season of life that I went through with difficult, unsupportive co-parents, where they were constantly let down and had to pretty much go it alone. And staying stuck in pain, what you're doing is you are signing a silent agreement with your past. You're not allowing yourself to move into the future by completing that healing process and letting the desire for healing drive you. And I am here to say to you today, while it was tough and difficult, had I not had these pitfalls with the fathers of my children, I wouldn't have gone to graduate school. I wouldn't have had an opportunity to go to China for 5 years. And my children would not have had the backing to give them a developed country's education. And they probably would have struggled way more because it was not a perfect journey, not a perfect journey. but they knew there was someone who had their back. And whenever the call came, that call came to me. It didn't come to any of their dads. And whether that was money that was short for rent when my second was in University of Toronto, or whether it was a summer course, or whatever course it was that was not a part of the original tuition, or whether it was child care for my eldest when she was in her final year of nursing school. It was I who they called. And had I not put myself in that position where I had traveled this journey and purpose to heal and had walked through that healing and now had the life experience backed up by the credentials that had allowed me to earn the income to support them when they needed it, it wouldn't have happened for them in the way it did.
Nice, very good. Like I told you, I always ask, what does She Roars Boldly mean to you?
Okay, so as I said before, I was totally enamored by the title of this podcast because when I associate the roar with a lion, and when you hear the roar of a lion, it's a definitive sound. You are not guessing and spelling what that roar is. That animal has a distinguished roar. And so it is a roar of strength. It is a roar of, just raw power. And so we get our power back by taking it back. And you take back your power by becoming the best version of who you are meant to be. And that comes from personal and professional development. And so I roared out my story so that I can empower you when you listen to it to say, if she went through that, I can too.
Yes. Yeah. And I did a lot of studying about the female lion. And the lioness does all the work, the hunting, the protecting, taking care of the kids. The male lion shows up if it's, something big and he's got to help. But the lioness, she has that roar. And I think you were just, as you were talking about your roar through the whole thing and how you didn't let anything stop you, because the same reason the lioness doesn't for your kids. And I could hear you just constantly putting their welfare above all things. And so you are a true lioness.
And my birth sign is Leo the lion. What a coincidence.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. And wow, you had quite a story, but you're here and you're resilient. And that's what Roaring Boldly is about, is that not that we don't have problems, but that we don't give up. And your story is one of that, of never giving up. No matter what hit you, you found a way to protect your kids, to go forward, to live your life as boldly as you live it. And so I thank you so much for joining us today. And wow, I see that a lot on this. Wow, women have come on with so many strong stories. And so I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, particularly Clover, and for all her honesty and sharing. I hope that someone out there is hearing this that needs to hear this and learn how to be as resilient as she has. And this is Dr. Deborah, and She Roars Boldly. Thank you again for joining us. See you next week. Bye.